Hey guys, what's up? This is just going to be a spontaneous video. Whatever comes to me is what I'm going to talk about. What I had on my mind before I made this video was just reflecting on the Gospels as a whole. Not like I'm actually qualified to speak into things to that degree, but generally I see some patterns. It generally goes Jesus talks to the crowds are healed or whatever. Then the Pharisees come to him and they accuse him of something, and then he talks to his disciples. That seems to be the basic pattern of the Gospels. You know, the thing that I think about the Gospels so often is that it does actually look quite bleak. Um, and maybe that's a point of view that a lot of people aren't used to hearing. But when I think about all the stuff that Jesus had to basically go through before he even died on a cross, I mean, he. Think of this being up for 3 days and nights, talking to people, people coming up to you all the time, and it's like you can't get away from people. And people are always around you, and a few times that you go off by yourself, when you come back, the disciples end up not believing what's going on right now. You have to explain to them what's going on. Um, that is, if it wasn't for the few far in between times where we see the morality of Jesus poke out in a more hopeful way, which is like when he extends mercy to people mostly. There's a lot of examples of that in the Bible, but for me, when I read through the Gospels, it doesn't seem like it happens enough. And before I go too far into this, I just want to say um, a lot of stuff that could have been in the Bible isn't in the Bible. And what the disciples actually wrote down, or the eyewitnesses, or whoever wrote the Bible, what those people wrote down was basically what they felt was the most important to write about. That's kind of how I see the Gospels. A lot of stuff is not covered. They could have talked about so many other things. I'm assuming that the disciples got together and talked about things and like, hey, what did you think was important from what Jesus did? I'm sure there was certain things like that went on, um, and that's without saying the road to Emmaus, where Jesus basically explains everything to them. But you know what? It's not as cheery as it makes it, as a lot of people think the Gospels is. I mean, we're talking about God, who, as Paul says, humbled himself. You know, um, and when I think of that idea of humbling yourself, it's basically just pretending like, I don't want to say pretending, that's a bad word. I want to say basically just putting up with people's crap all the time. That's kind of the way I see it. Is um, think about it like this. You know, a lot of geniuses, I'm not claiming to be a genius or anything like that here, but I'm just telling what I've heard. A lot of geniuses actually um, feel like an outsider in one manner or another. And I feel like an outsider, but for different reasons. But just imagine yourself, you're smarter than everyone around you, and you try to explain things to people in a way that they can understand, but they never quite get there in their understanding. And to have to sort of live with that, I can imagine would be uh, annoying. Annoying. And but here's the thing: is there's people that are in power that are very very intelligent, and they've learned to dumb it down. Actually, um, one person that I would say is like this is Rabbi Zacharias. He's he does not come across like he is an exceptionally bright guy, um, but I think he dumbs down a lot of what he says because he can only say so much in so much time. Um, I think the basically what he talks about when he explains an answer to someone is it's basically the tip of the iceberg is the way I would see it. It's like he could say a lot more that goes underneath that, but he has to keep it in a formulaic way, sort of thing. Um, and that's why I really appreciate when certain people that are like him can actually, um, well, what would the word be? Something like identify with the common folk or something like that. Um, and be able to sort of um, engage with them in a way that they can, like, it's mutual in some respects. You learn something from them, they learn something from you. And this is largely how I see the way Jesus lived his life. Um, if you look at his morality and ethics, I mean, it's light years beyond what any kind of ethics are like in philosophy today. I mean, there's not there's not really a comparison there. If your arm causes you to sin, cut it off. I mean, who says that, right? Well, God does. And so when we think about ethics and stuff like that in today's world, we think about what is kind of measuring these two things, like what is going to bring the most benefit, what is going to eliminate the most suffering. But it seems like Jesus had this sort of holistic picture um, to what morality means. And it's an interesting thing because did he know that by studying the law, or did he know that through studying the law and using his intuition? Um, so that's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, um, I think with this coronavirus thing, I just want to touch on this here. Um, it is sure screwing me up because I'm not actually talking to anyone. Um, Now, I don't normally talk to people very often, but that's why I need that little bit that I get. But, um, I haven't really talked to anyone in probably 3 days. Um, and that's kind of a difficult thing to go through. But I think I can't imagine what the extroverts are like because they really um, they need a lot of stimulus and they like to engage, they like to interact and go out there and do stuff. And they can't do that anymore, or at least they feel like they can't do it anymore. That's how I would think if I was an extrovert. But yeah, so coronavirus, I think, I don't know, uncertain times. I think I'm certainly in no position to say, well, this is what's going to happen. I certainly don't know. But if I want to tie this into my faith right now, I think I'm going to. I actually do honestly think that unless you can sort of show your guts when it comes to the crap hitting the fan concerning faith, I think that's really the key factor here in how authentic is your faith. I think if you can pretend like you're a Christian, yeah, that's fine. You can pretend like you're a Christian and you like to go to church and you meet people there and you study your Bible and you know all these things. But what are you going to do when things get hard? Everybody dies. A shocker, I know. And that's what coronavirus is reminding us of right now. Is that we are mortals. And so you think about death, and it's something I've thought about a lot. Um, what is death like? What is that final moments before death? What is that like? And it's kind of a dark place to go, but I think in some regards it's better to address it than to ignore it. So this is where I just say, hands off, let God take the wheel and let him do what he's going to do. Um, Especially in times where there's really not a ideal path, I guess, what I would say there. So yeah, those are some thoughts. Uh, Thanks for listening. It was long. Talk to you later. Bye.